A very good evening and welcome to this Sunday's edition of News First Weekend, coming to you live from our News First studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Mudanayaka. Let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines this evening.
Two people shot at in Ankumbura Kandy, one dead. 4 foreigners arrested in possession of 2 kilograms of heroin. Colombo Crimes Division to investigate fire at a shop in Papiliana. News First exposes the extent of MPs' wages and privileges.
And now the stories in detail. Armed gunmen in a car shot 2 people before fleeing the scene in the Ankumbura area in Kandy this morning.
One of the victims who was shot was killed instantly, while the other is receiving treatment at the Kandy General Hospital. The victim who was killed has been identified as a 23-year-old resident of the Ankumbura area. Police said that 2 suspects have been arrested in connection with the shooting. A T-56 firearm which was in the possession of the suspects was also seized by the police. The car which was used for the shooting was found abandoned in the Pujapitiya area in Haris Pattua. 6 police teams headed by the senior DIG for the Central Province have been deployed to apprehend the remaining suspects.
Illegal firearms have brought upon a massive threat on the security of the general public in the country today. So the government is waiting until the situation threatens the security of parliamentarians to resolve this. The government, which speaks of international terrorism, should take immediate measures to arrest the crisis of illegal firearms which is prevalent within the country. Moreover, the law must be strictly enforced against those who possess illegal firearms.
National security was a topic of concern for many public representatives today.
Major Kamal Gunadatna, while speaking in Gaul, has said that he cannot be satisfied with the security in the north.
If they can't be satisfied, then they are the people who are responsible for creating such a state. The former Defence Secretary should also be held responsible. It is these people who are behind the formation of various groups. I would tell the government to take strict action against such people. Mine activities that are not only a threat to the country's security but to the entire region are now being carried out in our country. If I mention the name ISIS influence, at least a small group in our society has been affected by it. We should not forget that a single terrorist killed over 80 people in France recently. Seeds of such acts are being planted in various locations, especially in the north. However, institutions that work within the democratic framework for the protection of their identity and cultural heritage should be allowed to carry on with their work.
ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී රාමුව ඇතුලේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන ආයතන සම්බන්ධයෙන් මම හිතන්නේ ඒවා සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපි ඒවට ඉඩ දිය යුතු ප්‍රජාතාන්ත්‍රික වශයෙන් ඉඩ දිය යුතු තත්ත්වයකුත් තිබෙන බව අවධාරණය කරන්න ඕනේ.
මේ තොරතුරු හෙළිදරව් කරේ මේවා සංගවා තබා ගැනීම තුල
This information was revealed in order to avoid the dangerous situation that may have arisen by hiding it and not to instigate racism. We explain these matters to the public so that they can understand the situation in the country and to take steps to avoid the country from being dragged into an unpleasant state. We do not want racism, but those who harbor racist views can criticize this. We are ready to listen to criticism, but we are not ready to accept them.
Investigations with regard to the fire which broke out at a clothing store in Buralaskam or Papiliana last night have been handed over to the Colombo Crimes Division.
The fire broke out at around 9 last night on the 3rd floor of the building. The building and property inside were damaged while the fire was put out with the intervention of several fire extinguishing services including the air and naval forces. Meanwhile, several politicians including Minister Faiza Mustafa arrived at the location. A tense situation broke out between the employees of the establishment and the police when an employee had attempted to take away CCTV footage of the complex.
There is no cause for this to be an electrical shortage because we shut down all electrical lines in the evening. There is no reason for a shortage. We have a reasonable suspicion.
Police said that advanced technological mechanisms and CCTV footage obtained from the factory complex will be used in the investigation. The police headquarters said that the support of the Government Analysts Department has been sought for the investigations as well.
On to another one of our headline-making stories. 4 foreign nationals were arrested close to the Mount Lavinia railway station in possession of heroin worth 20 million rupees.
Senior Superintendent of Police in charge of the Police Narcotics Bureau, Kamal De Silva, said that a total of 2 kilograms of heroin was seized in the arrest. He added that the arrests were made based on information which were gathered during investigations which were being conducted for a long period of time. The foreign nationals include 3 Maldivians and 1 Pakistani.
The monthly salaries and allowances of members of parliament must be increased. Now, this is an argument that has been put forward both within and outside parliament recently. However, what is the present status of the salaries and allowances paid to MPs? News First made inquiries.
The base monthly wage of a member of parliament is 54,285 rupees. Each MP also receives a monthly fuel allowance which varies according to the district they represent. This figure ranges between 15,000 to 65,000 rupees. In addition, each MP also receives between 80,000 to 100,000 rupees for the wages of personal staff, 50,000 rupees as a telephone allowance, 10,000 rupees as a transportation allowance and 1,000 rupees as an entertainment allowance. MPs are also paid an attendance allowance of 500 rupees for attending sittings of Parliament. Furthermore, MPs also receive 50,000 rupees a month to rent a home, an insurance cover of 200,000 rupees, and the privilege of purchasing a vehicle valued at up to $62,500 or 9,375,000 rupees exempt from tariffs. As such, each MP receives close to 200,000 rupees per month. It must also be noted that MPs who are appointed as ministers, state ministers and deputy ministers receive the benefits of that office. At the same time, each MP is allocated a sum of money from the decentralized fund to carry out development work in their electorate. The allocation last year was 10 million rupees. However, as was made evident to us by members of the public during the Gum at the initiative, it appears that these funds were not spent on the people. Among the proposals that have received the most scrutiny at present is the proposal to increase the insurance cover to 500,000 rupees and the attendance allowance to 2,500 rupees.
I believe
that the insurance cover for members of parliament is 200,000 at present. This needs to be increased to 500,000 rupees. If it is not increased, then there is very little that can be done given the current VAT. A sum of 1.2 billion rupees has been allocated for the Prime Minister through this budget. The wages paid to ministers and MPs is very low at present. It needs to be increased or the job cannot be done. This is true. When I go home, I see that my wife's salary is higher than mine. That is the situation. Against this backdrop, the chief opposition whip, Anurakumara Dissanayaka, noted in Parliament recently that the government has also decided to grant another privilege to 58 selected MPs. Honourable Speaker, as per the proposal submitted by the Finance Ministry to the Cabinet, the Finance Ministry has submitted a Cabinet paper to give vehicles to 58 MPs at a monthly lease of 700,000 rupees. The Economic Committee has made this decision and informed the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs to lease these vehicles. The company which they will be purchased from has also been selected. Honourable Speaker, it has already been revealed that 58 MPs who are supporting this government are receiving 200,000 rupees in addition to their monthly wage. How can this be done? you are paying off MPs to sustain the government. No, go and look at your salary slip and check your bank account to see whether an additional 200,000 has been paid. Yes, I accept that. It is not a mistake. I accept it. What views do ordinary citizens hold on the proposal to increase the wages and allowances of their representatives? I saw another MP saying that even this insurance cover is not enough and that it needs to be increased further. No matter what they say, the people must carry the burden. They receive all the privileges from Parliament, and so at times I think that I should go to Parliament too, because we live amid much difficulty. I think that they are very innocent people, living with much difficulty. Unlike us, they have no other way of living, which is why they are asking for an increase. Look at their expenses. Look at how much they have to pay for lunch in Parliament. So by the gods, it must be increased without further delay.
ඇති පැති අයට හොඳ හැටි කාබී ඉන්ටයි අසරණ අයට කුසගින්නේ මිය යන්ටයි මේ සැරතෙන්නේ මැටි ඇමතිලා සැප ගන්ටයි සියලුම හිරි හැරි දුප්පත් මිනිසුන්ටයි.
As 2016 draws to a close and the financial report starts streaming in, it provides an opportunity for us to take a stock of our own and our nation's financial situation. 9,382 billion rupees. This number is a focus of this week's News First editorial.
Our GDP growth rate has fallen, with the central bank estimating real GDP growth to be 3.9% in the first half of 2016 compared to around 5% during the same time last year. This is compared to our fiercest regional competitors, namely Bangladesh at 7.05% and Vietnam at 6.4%. Our balance of trade stands at a negative $645 million, with export earnings growth slower than slowing down of imports. Foreign direct investment, that should be the lifeblood of our economy, stands at just $117 million as of the first quarter of 2016. That's lower than an average of $128 million since 2001.
As 2016 draws to a close and the financial report starts streaming in, it provides an opportunity for us to take a stock of our own and our nation's financial situation. 9,382 billion rupees. This number is a focus of this week's News First editorial.
The News First editorial.
Sri Lanka's total outstanding government debt, according to the central bank, stands at a staggering 9,382 billion rupees as of the end of July 2016. That's an increase of 878.7 billion rupees from the end of 2015. At the end of 2014, just before the new government took over, the total outstanding debt was 7,390.9 billion rupees, according to the central bank. This would mean that in a mere 2 years, our cumulative debt burden has increased by almost 2,000 billion rupees. Attributing the increase mainly to high domestic borrowings and the depreciation of the rupee against major foreign currencies, the central bank's special report makes particular mention of 70.1 billion rupees of debt being the result of the discount factor, which is the net difference between the book value and face value of issues and maturities of treasury bills and treasury bonds. Let's take a moment to let that number sink in. 70.1 billion rupees in national debt in just the first 7 months of 2016 as a result of issuing securities, including bonds, at higher rates. Of course, these billions mean little or nothing to the farmers of Tambuttegama and the fisher folk of Kaluankarni. The average Sri Lankan is kept enraptured and hypnotized in a never-ending political circus between the incumbents, who have divided themselves into factions, and the ousted camps determined to make a political comeback. The political class couldn't care less about the state of our economy or the state of our lives. That the Prime Minister advocated giving away a monthly allowance of 100,000 rupees to each MP to be used in development work, in addition to all the allowances and permits already in their kitty, is perhaps the most recent example of an abject lack of empathy and understanding of what really ails our nation and her people. An example of what may be politically right, but ethically shameful. The fact is, all we see is wild allegations being thrown at each other, a desperately political budget, and cloak and dagger games between the constituent parties of the national government. Have we heard of a grand national strategy? How do we intend on competing against the roaring economies in our own neighborhood? Where will Sri Lanka be 20 years from today? What investments are we making in building a highly skilled workforce equipped to take on the challenges in the years to come? It is impossible for this or any government to truly commit itself to building our nation whilst being focused on political survival and what is invariably and eternally the next election. And now the next one. The hotly debated local government polls is being touted as a litmus test for each party's popularity. It is bound to be a hotly contested street fight with fabulous amounts of money being thrown by contenders and parties alike. Pots of money that somehow never fail to magically appear during elections in Sri Lanka. Perhaps it is time that the sources of party funds are audited. It is, after all, in public interest that we are aware of how each party accumulates the millions and sometimes billions it will no doubt splurge, all in the name of power and control. Be that as it may, let's take a few moments to understand the state of our own finances. Let's take a brief look at our key economic indicators. Our GDP growth rate has fallen, with the central bank estimating real GDP growth to be 3.9% in the first half of 2016 compared to around 5% during the same time last year. This is compared to our fiercest regional competitors, namely Bangladesh at 7.05% and Vietnam at 6.4%. Our balance of trade stands at a negative $645 million, with export earnings growth slower than slowing down of imports. Foreign direct investment, that should be the lifeblood of our economy, stands at just $117 million as of the first quarter of 2016. That's lower than an average of $128 million since 2001. It would be interesting to note here that we have a board of investment, a cabinet minister and a state minister for development strategies and international trade, a minister of investment promotions, and then another quasi-BOI, the Agency for Development, supposedly created to streamline and attract FDI. Perhaps this utter bureaucratic mess has resulted in Sri Lanka's deterioration in terms of ease of doing business, as reported by the World Bank, in which Sri Lanka currently ranks 110th. We have been beaten by Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and even Nepal. But we are doing better than Swaziland, Uganda, Belize and Malawi. Well done to all the ministers, state ministers, agencies and boards concerned. An indication of the health of our manufacturing sector is reflected by the Manufacturing PMI, or Purchasing Managers Index, which has decreased to 56.5 in October this year. This points to weaker expansion of the sector and decelerated employment. Our national household savings ratio has also decreased to 22.6% from last year as people struggle to save amidst an increasing cost of living. Our housing index, which is the total number of housing approvals, has also decreased to 3,411 in the fourth quarter of 2016 from the quarter before. Unemployment increased to 4.6% in the second quarter of 2016 from the quarter before. The only saving grace seems to be foreign remittances, which have increased on the back of Sri Lankan domestic workers in the Middle East. If our political leaders were corporate leaders, this sort of performance would render them not just immediately unemployed, but permanently unemployable. All things considered, it is easy to be pessimistic and doubtful as to whether Sri Lanka can redeem for herself her rightful place on the global stage. But, as political commentator and futurist Alex Steffen says, optimism is a political act. Those who benefit from the status quo are perfectly happy for us to think nothing is going to get any better. In fact, these days, Cynicism is obedience.
Now, we experienced a minor technical difficulty at the start of our segment News First editorial. However, you can watch the complete News First editorial on our website www.newsfirst.lk as well as on News First YouTube channel. More local news comes your way after this short commercial break.
Gammadda Saviya.
A large group representing Parakramapura, Buddhangala, Ate Colonia and Biaya attended the Gammadda Saviya general meeting. The aim of Gammadda Saviya is to find speedy solutions to many problems in the area. Accordingly, 45 persisting issues in these villages were brought to attention. Of these problems, the increasing number of kidney ailments in the Padavi area was considered to be the most pressing issue. The people requested that villagers in Padaviya be provided with water purification projects. The News First team promised to direct these issues to the Gammadda Secretariat in order to provide speedy solutions.
5 of my sisters who were below the age of 50 have died within a span of 3 months, all because of the lack of clean water. The number of those who are suffering from kidney disease in the 38 colony is very high. Consider the roads in these villages. Most of us in Ruwanpura rely on paddy cultivation for our livelihoods. Because of the sad state of the roads, we cannot transport our paddy harvest. We request you to do something to build our roads.
Something that we realize is that Sirasa has brought solutions to many problems that these people face. We have great faith in Sirasa when we look at the way they carry out the work.
An anti-corruption conference organised by the Yuthukam Sangwada Kavi was held in Colombo last evening. Here are some of the views expressed at this conference.
On the 17th of March, the Prime Minister made a statement in Parliament. During that statement, he put both hands in his pockets and insulted Parliament by asking what anyone in Parliament knew of bonds. There was no legal basis behind that process. It was a personal decision of the Prime Minister. He was the one who gave the terms of reference.
Oh, they know terms of reference monada? Yanne koheda mallepol. Hoyanda tiyenne ekak. Meata hoyanda kiyanne me committee.
He asked them to consider all bond issuances since 2012 and submit a report. So why would they battle with COPE, which is appointed to see whether fraud had been committed? Who are they doing this for? The only reason could be that they are protecting the thief. The government is saying clearly that the money from this transaction was taken by the UNP. Prior to August 2015, the UNP had been reduced to begging because they had no funds. I do not for a moment believe that this grand fraud took place unbeknownst to the Prime Minister. If the Prime Minister is truly innocent and he is not involved, then there is one important action that he can take. He must respectfully and temporarily step down from his position.
An event to mark International Education Week 2016 organised by the US Sri Lanka Fulbright Commission together with the US Embassy in Colombo commenced yesterday.
The event created a platform where the past US alumni were able to share their experiences and knowledge about the US education system with the potential students in Sri Lanka.
We also believe that international education promotes economic opportunities for individuals. Of those who are currently in the U.S., we have a number who are also pursuing the opportunity to remain in the U.S. after they complete their degrees in order to work. And that is a unique aspect of study in the U.S., that once you've graduated, you don't have to leave immediately. Rather, you can convert and you can remain and put those new skills to work. So the opportunities really are more than you think they are. You will, I think, gain more than you anticipate. Certainly, you will gain far more than simply a credential.
In the latest statistics that were released yesterday, there is a 6.9% increase of the number of students. It's the last time we had such a record number of 3,000 plus was in 2012. Two factors that I particularly value of U.S. education system. First, it's its interdisciplinary nature. The other fine aspect of U.S. higher education is the kind of diversity that you find in an American university.
The US SLFC, formerly known as the US Educational Foundation of Sri Lanka, is an autonomous binational commission established by the governments of the United States and Sri Lanka.
President Maithripala Sirisena paid his final respects to Most Venerable Theripaha Sumanandathera today.
The head of state paid his final respects to the late Most Venerable Theripaha Sumanandathera of the Udaratama Amarapura Mahanikaya at the Sri Sudharma Rama Temple in Talawatagoda. President Sirisena also held discussions with the funeral committee regarding the observing of final rites. The final rites of the Most Venerable Theripaha Somanandathera will be conducted at the Parliament grounds tomorrow.
The Junior National Law Conference organised by the Bar Association of Sri Lanka concluded today. News First was the media sponsor for the conference, which commenced on Friday.
The first session of the conference commenced under the auspices of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe on Friday and was also attended by Chief Justice K. Sri Pavan. President of the Bar Association, President's Counsel Jeffrey Alagaratnam also spoke at the event, addressing greater professionalism and greater understanding of fundamentals for mega development. The three-day conference concluded today with a panel discussion on the right to information with panelists Justice Vijit Malalgoda, Senior Lawyer J.C. Valyamuna and State Counsel Nirmalan Vigneswaran.
With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Weekend Primetime News. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.